Let's put our cards on the table right out of the gate. Michael was a troubled individual. There's no doubt about that. When it comes to his legacy today, you're going to fall into two camps generally. You either stay away and focus entirely on the legal narrative, or you turn the other cheek and tap your feet to the music. I'm not here to litigate the past. This video is here to review the biopic, its structural failures as a piece of cinema, and the wider context of how the Hollywood machine manufactures history. But let's make it clear. Jaafar Jackson is phenomenal in this. Giuliano Valdi as young Michael, also fantastic. Jaafar has never acted in a feature film before, yet he steps onto a $150 million set and absolutely nails the physicality, the voice, and the sheer electrostatic stage presence of one of the most famous humans to ever live. He put in the work, he brought the electricity, and that's exactly what makes it such a frustrating movie. Jaafar Jackson gave us a brilliant, deeply committed performance, and the producers locked him inside a $150 million wax museum.
Getting old sucks.
Cinema requires friction. It requires deeply flawed characters making difficult choices. But Michael, it turns its subject into a pure, untouchable angel and flattens his father, Joseph Jackson, into a cartoon devil. For a movie about a guy who famously sang "It didn't matter if you're black or white," it's incredibly ironic the film is entirely bland and white. There is no grey in this film. Every challenge is overcome in seconds. The hurdles don't matter. It's less of a film and more of a handheld dalliance through nostalgia. To understand why it fails so fundamentally, you have to look at the man behind the music, and I don't mean Michael. I mean Graham King, the producer. Think about every Best Picture win you've ever seen at the Oscars recently. It always becomes a complete free-for-all. The stage floods with financiers, executives, producers, anyone vaguely associated with the catering. Look, when Moonlight won, we got to see that chaotic free-for-all happen twice in the span of 5 minutes. But back in 2007, when The Departed won Best Picture, producer Graham King engineered it so he stood completely alone on that stage to accept the award. Think about the sheer audacity of that for a second. Martin Scorsese, an absolute titan of cinema, finally wins his long overdue Best Director Oscar, and to date his only Best Picture Oscar, and the defining image we get of that monumental victory isn't a celebration of collaborative filmmaking, it's King Graham, standing up there by himself. He locked out the other producers, and it takes a specific kind of ego, almost a messiah complex, to look at the ultimate collaborative medium of film and just say, nope, this one's for me. In a dark way, it makes perfect sense. A producer of a movie with his own messiah complex, hired to launder the legacy of a pop star who famously had one of his own. King helped deliver a gritty Scorsese masterpiece back then, but then he discovered a much more lucrative formula. He became the king who took the queen out of Queen. He fed Freddie Mercury through a PG-13 sanitised wood chipper, sanded off all the edges, and made $1 billion with Bohemian Rhapsody, a financial flex that the marketing team for Michael has been incredibly keen to put front and centre to sell tickets. So when the Jackson estate needed to launder a legacy, they didn't hire Graham King to make a challenging piece of cinema, they hired him to execute a corporate PR strategy. They hired him to build the definitive HD glossy Bible. And because of that, the movie treats its audience like toddlers. There's an early scene where a traumatised young Michael, hiding under the bedsheets with a flashlight after a beating from his father, is reading Peter Pan. The camera shows an illustration of Captain Hook about to be eaten by the crocodile, and Michael has literally written the word Joseph pointing directly at the villain. This is the level of subtlety the movie goes for. It plants the seeds for a tragic downfall but aggressively refuses to water them. We see teenage Michael watching the Three Stooges, eating popcorn with his mum, later wanting to play Twister with his brothers. Textbook psychological setups for a man who eventually built a literal amusement park to reclaim his lost childhood. Speaking of that amusement park, we have to call out the CGI zoo. Bubbles the chimp gets surprisingly heavy screen time early on alongside a CGI snake, a rat and a giraffe. but it's all just sterile window dressing, setting the stage for the later Neverland sleepovers that never happen.
I got your nose blanket, see? I got your nose.
The infamous Pepsi commercial burns? They're opioided away within minutes of runtime, brushing past a decade-long life-altering addiction like a minor speed bump. The movie genuinely wants you to believe that Michael watched a 30-second news clip about gang violence, walked into a rehearsal room and single-handedly cured street crime with the bad videos. You know, like the time Bob Geldof cured world hunger at Wembley. The most glaring issue with Michael isn't just what it sanitizes, it's what it amputates. Director Antoine Fuqua originally shot scenes of the 1993 police raids on Neverland, but deep into production the estate realised they had forgotten a clause in the 1994 Chandler settlement that strictly barred the depiction or mention of any allegations, so they panicked and spent $15 million on reshoots to hastily construct a new ending and surgically amputate the entire final third of the film. Because they had absolutely no idea what to do with that structure, the end of the movie just devolves into an elongated music video, padding running time jumping from one shiny recreation to the next, entirely to distract you from the fact they're just building towards the cinematic equivalent of a to-be-continued title card. It feels like a mega-budget mini-series that abruptly hits a cliffhanger before the next season, and there's zero chance they have the balls to make the part 2. Because part 2 is the exact era they just paid $50 million to erase. And that sadly means we'll be denied the IMAX spectacle of Jarvis Cocker mooning the Messiah complex at the Brit Awards. Instead of an actual narrative, there's just a desperate attempt to mimic magic. You can remember that time that Rami Malek won an Oscar because on the 70 seconds take, he got his left pinky at the correct angle in front of a green screen. Look, the original 1985 Live Aid footage is the time capsule for Freddie Mercury and Queen. You see the sweat, the stray hairs, the actual Pepsi cups on the piano. When you watch the original Motown 25 broadcast of Billie Jean on YouTube, it's a raw moment of electricity captured with real reactions from an audience seeing the moonwalk for the first time. In the movie, we don't see Michael obsessively drilling that routine in the movie. It's treated like an immaculate conception, dropped on stage and ironed to perfection by King Graham. We're asked to pay to go see history recreated in 4K by Madame Tussauds. We get the making of the bad video without reference to the fact that Martin Scorsese directed it. We get the Thriller video with John Landis reduced to a guy holding a microphone. We need to talk about the profound danger of legacy laundering and more importantly who this movie is actually for. Let's be very clear, this movie is not for Michael, it's not for his kids who are reportedly dismissive of it. The film is designed to do one thing, reline the estate's coffers. It's a highly engineered front and centre 4K blanket woven solely to cover the stains on the bed sheets. Despite of all the structural and cinematic failures, the truth is this movie is going to be a massive hit. The screening I went to is the busiest theatre I've sat in since the last Avatar. You could feel the electricity in the audience. The soundtrack, of course, is undeniable, from Jackson 5 covering Sly and the Family Stone, all the way up to Human Nature and Bad. People who came to have the nostalgia tickled are going to get exactly what they paid for. And that is what's so terrifying about this movie's inevitable success. It sets a bulletproof template for whatever estate needs legacy laundering next. If audience accept this, what is the next step in Graham King's formula? Graham King produces Gary Glitter, My Gang, glossing over the particulars to show him drinking cocktails on his beach holiday to Vietnam. Graham King presents Lost Prophets, Mega Lobes, bypassing the court transcripts to end on a triumphant Reading Festival show. It's exactly why looking back at something like Elvis Presley in concert, the epic documentary, it's such a necessary contrast. That film is unfiltered, uncompromising and incredible because the subject matter demanded it. It proved exactly how we should present our icons. Raw, unfiltered, reality. Sweat and bum notes intact. That's how you capture true greatness. You respect the artist, you respect the audience. The Springsteen biopic from last year delivered me from nowhere. It had bombast, yes, it established Jeremy Allen White as Bruce in the very beginning, but then it brought us into a focused 2-hour story about mental health. When they finally hit the Born in the USA sessions, it was earned, it meant something, and it showed despite sitting on guaranteed mega hits, he needed to release stripped down acoustic Nebraska. It was his therapy. Michael, on the other hand, has no conflict because we have to jump to the next track on the playlist. It is a made-for-TV movie with a mad budget. Over the next few weeks, you're going to see a massive war on Rotten Tomatoes. The audience score is going to be incredibly polarised from the critics. People will hold up a flag to show that cinephiles are so out of touch, but they're missing the point. The people cheering in the theatre aren't cheering for a good movie. They're cheering because Billie Jean is a masterpiece. They're confusing a great soundtrack with a great screenplay. Michael is an experience, yes, but as a piece of narrative cinema, it's profoundly structurally flawed. 100 years from now, the court cases, the tabloids, and the internet discourse will be dust. The music and this movie are all that will be left. The estate knows that film is permanent, so they brought their own mythology to carve into stone. Go watch the real unfiltered Motown footage on YouTube. I'll catch you on the next one.
Would you like to know more?
Movies, popcorn.